Up, I'll do, and welcome to our second episode today on our 10th feature of Loose Lips. I'm Ben Random, and we're going to be speaking with Sam Airey, a singer, songwriter, originally from Wales but located in the wonderful city of Leeds. We're going to be speaking to him about his music. So yeah, if you've got any questions or anything that you want to be putting across through the chat, feel free, and I'll look to segue them in when I can. If you're new to this is Loose Lips, as I say. You can see the back catalogue from our previous chats on YouTube by going Pop Cult Chic, or likewise you can find it on Instagram, pop.cult.chic. So yeah, Mr. Airey is in the group. You just need to send me a request and then we can join. Shout out Brendan. Yep. Good man, good man. The man who taught me how to set decks up, and I've never looked back since. Of part of our days, you know that. Shout out anyone who is coming through in the chat as well. Here we go. Hey up, Mush, you alright, pal?
Hey, how are you? You alright?
I'm good, brother. Good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm doing alright, yeah. Not too bad, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm missing our favourite bus, the 508. I'm missing those chance encounters just at a backup bus. But other than that, it's all good, man. I mean, it's a weird situation, definitely, I think, for everybody, but just making the most of it by looking to do things like this and connect and, yeah, chill with my cat.
I've been doing a lot of chilling with my cat and all as well, so.
Does your cat look at you like, why are you still here? I've never seen you this much. What are you doing? Like,
yeah, there's been an increased amount of judgment from my cat, definitely.
that is it. That is what that look is. It goes from love to judgment, just like that.
I find that, like, even when I go out on just like a little walk or like a bike, like nip out on the bike or go running or come back, and like it's like a nice little breather for the cat. The cat, like, not enough that she actually, wants to spend time with me, but
I find like my cat looks at me and knows my patterns. So like on a Saturday night when I'm used to like getting ready to go out, she's just staring at me like, you should be doing something now. It's like it's her house. It's like, what are you doing in my house?
yeah.
It's mad. It's mad. But have you found this time to look in and be creative? Is it one of them?
I've kind of like settled into it slowly, I would say. Like the last couple of weeks, especially. Yeah, it's a weird time. It's a weird time to try and force creativity, I think.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's got a lot of time in their hands. So everyone's kind of thinking. I don't know if it's the same with you, or like, I know like a lot of creative people are kind of the same in that when they have the time, they heap the pressure on themselves to kind of do something with it. And it's I don't know, I think like before all of this, I'd kind of learned that that's not really my like best
Your
way.
process.
Been a couple of times where I've gone away somewhere to write, and I've kind of gone, I have to get like X amount of songs out of this, or I have to, be this productive. And like, if it doesn't happen, which quite often it doesn't, because you just like I say, you can't always force it. So like, yeah, if it doesn't, then you end up kind of getting down on yourself and beating yourself up about it, and it's just not like, it's just counterproductive in every way. So
it's good you brought that up. I remember you saying to me before, did you go to Scotland?
Yeah, I went to
Isle of Skye or something.
About a year ago, I went up to the Isle of Skye for a week, and that was like definitely like a learning experience on kind of like on that level, because I'd gone and I'd wanted to, I can't really remember what I'd set, but I wanted like a certain amount of songs out of it, and yeah, it just wasn't really the most productive way of looking at it. And once I settled into it and kind of stopped giving myself a hard time, I actually started writing loads. So it's one of those. I think like the way I've tried to treat all of this so far is just kind of, I don't know, just kind of try and bring back that kind of playful like aspect of it, where you're just messing around with almost like no end goal, and if something comes of it, then great, but if not, it doesn't really matter. And I always find those tend to be the ways you kind of end up with something.
It's mad in it because the sort of tap to creativity, it's always prevalently turned on. Like, sounds wrong that, doesn't it? Creativity is always turned on, ding dong. Like, well, it is. Creativity is always turned on, and you can tap into it, but it's almost like you can force yourself too much, and it's you did use the word, it's counterproductive. And it's like sometimes you'll go for, I find this, I go for days sometimes, and it's like, am I procrastinating? And it's like, well, am I? But really, I'm not. And am I not forcing it? And then I'll try sit down, and then it's like, oh, I'm forcing it, and it's weird. And I've sort of given myself now a bit of leeway where it's like, I've come up with a 25-hour day. You can have this, a 25-hour day. So they say that if you try to be creative in any spell that's less than, say, an hour or 2 hours, basically, you know, especially if you're at home, you're going to potter about, you're going to make a cup of tea, you're going to mess about, chill with a cat, you know, you're going to wash things up that don't need washing up, you're going to, oh, I might wipe that, you know, and then you get that out of your system, and before you know it, you're ready. So if you give yourself like a 5-hour window, it's not to say that you're specifically going to be targeting the one topic in that 5 hours, but it's 5 hours to nurture yourself into the way where then it comes to a point where, oh, I'll go get a cup of tea. No, I've just had a cup of tea. You know, you've almost exhausted all your excuses and you're actually ready. And even when you're making a cup of tea, you're still in that mindset of, I'm still creating. And the reason why it's a 25-hour day is if you do that for 5 hours, then you give yourself a 2-hour break, and then you do it another 5 hours, give yourself a 2-hour break, and then depending how extreme you want to be, you can keep doing that until it works out that it's 7, 14, 21, and then you have a 25-hour day because you have a 5-hour kit.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's like a similar way of thinking about it too. I think that actually, like so much of the process is like subconscious and happens way before you think it happens. So your brain's like constantly taking in information from all over the place, you know, both consciously and subconsciously, and it's processing that in the background. And so you might sit down, you know, probably in any like walk of life really, and you might think that an idea has like come to you instantly, and that was like the moment of inspiration, but actually you might have had that bubbling under the surface for quite a long time. And I think that's why it's important to have those kind of sessions where you just mess around and you're not really like, you know, you might think that you're not being productive in a sense, but something like your brain's working on something.
It's almost like, I like the fact that you said it's taking it to a fun place again, because there can be a lot of pressure, and I suppose especially somebody like yourself, you know, you've been on tours, you've been around like different festivals, and it's almost like, is there a window of opportunity that you must like fit in, or then is it falling off and you've got to like maybe start again to recapture that momentum? So it can add that pressure, but it is true. I think there's a lot of key to it being fun. I definitely think that the funness needs to come out, because once that comes, then you're in a more playful state with yourself anyway, and I think you're less pressure even if something comes up and it's not even something you like, but you can laugh it off a bit more as opposed to being like, oh, it's frustrating. Yeah. It's not like, and I think that's as much as powerful as having the window to actually create stuff that you like as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a feeling that's been symptomatic of the whole thing, like not just about creating, but like the idea of, I feel like everyone at the minute is kind of like, you know, a lot of us are kind of like on a bit of a, like almost like a pause or like a hiatus from like our daily life, and I feel like people are kind of like distance, almost like you distance yourself from that a little bit. You're able to step back and kind of look at it, and you're able to sort of go, like, I don't know, like, am I having fun? Is this what I want to do? You know what I mean? And like, and I think like there's been a bit of a thing for me anyway, like being drawn back to like just really simple stuff in all of this, and that's definitely kind of part of that.
Do you, you mentioned a word, and I've been asking this to a lot of my guests recently, is this time now? Is it pause or is it reset?
Uh, maybe a bit, maybe a bit of both.
Pause it. It sounds like a Swedish meatball.
I mean, it depends how like philosophical you want to be about it, doesn't it? Because, you know, in amongst what like frankly shitty situation it is, you know, there have been quite a lot of positives to glean from it as well. And I don't know, with your idea of like resetting things is quite interesting, because, you know, this is maybe going a bit too philosophical, but like generally, like humans, we kind of want to maybe ask ourselves, like, the kind of world that we feel like we've left behind, is that the kind of thing that we want to like rejoin? Do we want that? I mean, and I think a lot of people think there's good changes that we've made from all of this. And the question is, you know, whether we'll stick to them. I mean, like I guess the worrying thing is that humans generally are creatures of habit, and, you know, will everyone kind of fall back into their old ways quite quickly or not? But
I'd like to think that it said that it takes, I think, between 21 and 30 days. I think it's more 30 days to form new habits. So I'd like to think that in this time, what we have done will form as a new habit. And when it starts going back to how things were, it won't feel as right as it once naturally occurred. So that then the plan is to manage the two, isn't it? It's to still be productive in the world once everything sort of presses play again. But I would like to think it's resetting in the sense of, say my Mac, for example, when I went to get it like wiped, I still had all my stuff on my hard drive. So then when I put it back on the hard drive, like everything that I liked was on the hard drive, but it worked a lot quicker and smoothly. Like that's what it should be.
Like reaching optimum level. Do you reckon you'll like feel recharged to like optimum you at the end of this? Maybe?
Do you know what? This is probably the hardest I've worked ever. Like, I'm no word of a lie, right? Like, it's almost like how I work in a bit of my mind is like, everyone was sort of chilling on couch in the dressing gown. I do that all the time. If you're going to do that, I'll do something else. So then I just started. But no, I feel like it's been an amazing platform for me to build up from. Like, I do believe I'll keep doing these. I think, and I'd like to get your opinion about yourself with this. Like, I think sometimes I can be too. I don't believe in perfection. I think imperfection is the only perfection that there is. But I think when it comes to a creative extension of what I'm coming up with, be it a comedy tour or a video, things that are sometimes taken out of my control, for example, the audio or like the visuals or the editing side of it, I'm really like, even now I can feel my body language really, like, it suffocates me sometimes, that, because I am really particular. Maybe not perfections, but I'm really particular with that. And sometimes that can slow down my outer productivity of what people get to see, what I'm up to. Whereas with this, because of the circumstances, it's almost like, well, it just make do with the situation how we can. And I've really like adapted. And I think I'd like to pray that when I do get back to creating more longer form videos, I still have that way about me and I don't go back to being that particular about it. Have you found anything like that?
Yeah, well, I think with this format, like you're doing now, it's quite a nice kind of snapshot of where everyone's at kind of day to day. Because like for a lot of people, every like no 2 days are the same. Everyone's kind of experiencing different things every day, and kind of like people might feel great one day and not so great the next. So I think that's quite interesting. But in terms of like what you're talking about with maybe trying to not get too hung up on like perfection, I think that's quite interesting. And definitely like a lot of people like making albums and stuff in the creative process in the studio, like embracing those little imperfections can kind of make a huge difference. Those can be the things that like I don't know, like make an album.
Set apart, you're true. I think of on one of the Michael Jackson songs Off the Wall, and at the end of, I forget which song it is, but his voice almost like breaks as he's like trying to reach this note, and you just feel this vulnerability to him, and it's like, oh, Michael. Oh.
I think like a lot of my favorite singers, especially, like don't have what you would consider to be kind of like orthodox, like great technical voices. So I love anything like that, where you can hear like a break, or like anything where you can hear kind of real like emotion, really. Like, you know, I've got a lot of admiration for like very technical singers as well, but like for me anyway, it's kind of, I tend to gravitate towards those kind of voices that tell a bit more of a story.
How do you tap into the emotion when you're singing? Because I hear a lot of singers when they're giving any advice, and it's from the core, it's not from the throat, and you've got to really tap into personal experiences to give that emotive like sense to the actual song. But it's something that I sort of get, but I don't understand really. So I'd really like to know how you go about that practice.
I don't even know if I can tell you, to be honest. I don't even know if it's something that I do consciously, which is weird, because it's kind of like I say, those are the kind of like voices that I'm drawn to, but really, I don't know. I just, I just do it. I don't think about it.
But when people go to like acting classes, or when people make it and they're on a set, what's said, and I've heard Tom Hardy say this, is if you've had the best day or the worst day, it doesn't matter what scene you're playing, you have to put what you've been through in the real world into that performance. So you just said it before, like no 2 days are the same, and this is an amazing snapshot to really get that. But do you find that if you've had a good day or a bad day, or whatever has influenced your day, can that affect your performance in that emotion and what you're putting across, or do you have it like stored in some like emotion bank where you're like, right, I need to tap into that for this song?
I think it can do. I think it can have an effect, definitely. But I think with time, you learn how to kind of control that and use that, and kind of use it kind of like when you need to, I think.
You've been going for a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been like about a decade of music making and releasing now this year. So yeah,
Do
in
you,
amongst a lot of other bits and pieces.
do you remember when you first realised that this is a path that you wanted to go down, that you had an ability at it, and it was something that you wanted to pursue?
I don't think there was ever like one like specific moment for me, really. I've always been drawn to like songwriting, like first and foremost, as like an outlet. And I think like regardless of like releasing stuff or touring or any of like that side of it, like at a certain point I kind of realized I'll always write songs because I enjoy doing it, and it provides like a good like outlet. So
Is that from a young age? Is that from like teenage age?
yeah, well, I reckon I started writing songs about 15, but they were terrible.
Were they inspired by any particular genre of music?
All sorts, really. Kind of like grew up in like a fairly like musical household. My dad's like my dad comes from like an Irish folk background, so like that's his like kind of thing. So I always kind of grew around like that around the house. And then through my teens I listened to like everything, really. Got into like a lot of heavier stuff, had a big kind of like indie kid phase. And then
Which we never grow out of.
not really, to be honest.
Never grow out of it.
So yeah, just a real kind of like combination of influences, really.
And then how did you find yourself in Leeds?
So I came for uni originally to study music, actually, and then just ended up staying. Yeah, just had a great time, and it was like the kind of perfect sized kind of city for me. I come from like quite a rural part of North Wales where like it's really like scenic and beautiful, but in terms of like a live music scene, it's quite difficult because everywhere's quite disjointed. So yeah, I was kind of like drawn to the music community in Leeds, like first and foremost, you know, like built around the great venues that we have. And like, I like the idea that there were people in all sorts of bands and different genres, all like kind of mixing and yeah, that was kind of the thing for me. And Leeds was always like a comfortable sized city for me because of where I was from. So like, it was big enough that it seemed like a big city to me, but not overwhelmingly so, which I think I would have maybe found if I'd like gone to London or something.
I love that about Leeds. It's almost got that community sense of a village with its size when you're looking at a big city when we're talking about the city centre, but it's definitely a city that has its accolades where if you were to go London, or I remember being in Ibiza just on a massive session and like, oh, where you from? Like, oh, I live Leeds. And like, no way, talking to us all about the clubbing and the DJ. So like, it's infamous wherever you are. So I do feel like that's one of the reasons why I still stay. Like a lot of the chats that I've had are people who have been based here and then have moved London and have said that it's helped them progress a lot more quickly because they're in and around it every day, and the people that they're bumping into know somebody, and it's one of them where you can be there. Whereas for us up here, it feels, even though it's only 2 and a bit hours away, and you get to go past the Emirates as well. Emirates, like, you know, train, like it's not even that far. But I personally feel like why I remained up here is that I feel like it's the perfect space and place for me to build my own empire, to then have other people go, we want a bit of that. Whereas when you're going down there, it feels like you're almost competing with everybody that are on with the same thing. Pete Tripper said, it's a medium-sized pond for a medium-sized fish. Thank you for that input, Pete.
I'm all right with that. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But no, so you felt that you were at home in Leeds and then, you know, you started, well, how did uni go for you? Which uni?
Leeds Uni, actually. I was meant to go to the College of Music to do music tech, like to do a production degree. And then I fairly last minute like changed to do something more academic, just to kind of like widen options at the end, because I didn't really want to kind of necessarily go into a studio or kind of go down an engineering route. So yeah, I kind of did that. But it was good. I mean, like, I mainly did it because I knew I enjoyed it and didn't know what else I wanted to do at that stage. To be completely honest, there were bits of it I didn't enjoy because I was already quite headstrong at that age about like ideas and about the way that I wanted to write songs and stuff like that. So I was careful about like tailoring it to like what I wanted from it, because like I didn't want like composition lessons in how to write a pop song and stuff.
Yeah, you didn't want to lose your essence of who you were in that.
But yeah, definitely enjoyed it. I mean, I could have done I definitely could have done a more worthwhile degree. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. Met some good people as well.
Was it a simple step once you finished? Was it always to stay at Leeds? And then what was the focus in how you were going to stay about Leeds? Like, when did a Porto come into your life?
That kind of or it wasn't really that simple, actually. I graduated and I moved back home, and I spent a few months. There was a bit of time, maybe like 8 or 9 months in between where I moved home. Yeah, just kind of like didn't really have a great time at that point. Just really just like kind of missed kind of like the music community and stuff like that. And that was the reason why I ended up moving back. So I probably had about 8 or 9 months where, yeah, I was just like in a bit of a crap job and just like not really having a great time. So kind of I moved back and then, yeah, started working in bars around that point. And And then, yeah, just kind of like slowly started gigging around then as well.
I remember one of the chats that we had. Like, I like bobbing in the mid afternoon and catching up with you in a Porto. So anyone who's watching who's not familiar, a Porto is an infamous bar on Call Lane in Leeds. It's sort of like the alternative music mecca of Leeds, I'd say, like with your indie and your more electro synth around that vibe. So you'll be chilling through there. And I remember I went to you and you just got your demographics, your analytics from your Spotify, and you were telling me like that's one of the best ways that you could learn to plan how to gig, because you know that you've got fans. Were it like in Scandinavia? Was it Denmark or somewhere?
I don't know specifically about that one, but yeah, it's really interesting when you look into all that stuff, that you have access to it and that you can see where people are listening. It's hard really with that because you don't. The data is useful and useless at the same time. Just because you can't, like, it gives you a good idea, but you can't really like differentiate what a casual listener is to like a fan. But that said, you know, it is really, really interesting. You get like a good idea of like where people are starting to listen and where you might be able to look at like building a bit more of like a live presence, definitely.
Was there any particular places that you saw and you were like, what? As if they've heard from me over there?
Yeah, there's a few. I think like I think Turkey is like consistently has been like the last 2 or 3 years, like maybe like the second most. I think the top one is the US. I think the second is like the UK, and then like third is like Turkey. So I need to look into a Turkish at some point. Yeah,
that's it. Well, that must be quite shocking, but also like in a good way shocking, but also like humbling as well to know that, because that's another thing as a creative, when you release it, it's almost like there's two lives of the project. There's the life of what we have and put into it, and then there's a life of its own, and when people get to knit and pick and add their own memories to it. So like that must be rather humbling to know that it's reaching these sort of places where, like you say, have you ever been there before?
Yeah, I've been to Turkey on holiday, I think, just like a...
That's it, you planted that seed. That's what you were on about with the subconscious before. You were like subconsciously on holiday when you were younger. You were like, one day you'll listen to my music out here.
But yeah, it's a weird one, definitely. But yeah, it's quite interesting. It's interesting, like which songs seem to resonate more, especially like in other countries. I think, like I've had one particular song that's kind of like really, really popular in like South America as well. And I can't really put my finger on like why, but it has quite a strong like narrative. It's very kind of like storytelling kind of focus, and there must be something with that seems to resonate with people. I don't know. But
do you reckon it's like I've forgotten the dude? You will have seen the documentary. There's a documentary about a dude who became big in South Africa after I should know his name. Like I feel like I'm gonna Google it halfway through this conversation. If you see me subtly just going like that, it's because I'm Googling this name. But a dude who made it in. If anyone in the chat knows, there's a.
Is this Searching for Sugar Man, the film?
Yes.
Yeah. Rodriguez, is it?
Rodriguez, yes, Rodriguez. Good man. Good man. So do you feel like it's a bit like that where you could be going out in 40 years' time to like South America and all these people are like, oh my God, it's Sam Airey. You don't know how much this changed my life.
I don't really know about that, to be honest. That is an amazing story. Like, definitely. Yeah, I like the idea of the cult kind of songwriter. Those, and like you say, that the idea of like songs kind of taking on lives of their own, like for years and years. I kind of like that. The idea of that quite a lot.
How do you plan your tours? Is this a factor? Because I know like, and also how do you approach festivals? Like one of the first times I saw you actually was at Latitude when I was heckling you with Zlatan Ibrahimovic banter. I am Zlatan.
Yeah, I remember that.
But how do you go about getting booked for various festivals and also other gigs? Is it something you put on yourself?
It tends to be like usually around momentum, things around like releases, and at like a certain point, like round then, there was just kind of like a lot of momentum behind a few of the tracks that I was putting out, and I had like a lot of really great support from people like Hugh Stevens
Yeah.
and music. That one was Hugh Stevens curates a stage at Latitude called the Lake Stage, and so I played that one through him. Was approached by him to play that, which was ace. But yeah, quite often I've always kind of been pretty DIY with everything. I mean, I've co-ran a record label with Dan, a good mate of mine, for like quite a few years. I say co-ran, but he did most of the work. But I kind of like, yeah, we kind of like started out we put like my first EP out on that, and then we kind of went from there and ended up kind of like looking after some other bands with it. And so yeah, I come from quite like a DIY background, really, of kind of just getting involved myself and yeah, approaching people.
Well, you also had different ideas as well with ways to put on gigs. I remember you were telling me that you were. I don't know if I'm going to give away a trade secret. If anyone's watching, this is copyright to Sam. So if we see anybody doing it, we'll be like throwing like washing up liquid at you because it's on River Air, and it's in his name as well. Like that, it should be called like the gig of River Air. But you were going to play like on a barge canal and do like different segments of people, like, so it'd be like a different gig but for like 20-30 people. You go up and down and then you'd like the next set of people could come through.
Oh yeah, we did that actually. It was great. Yeah, a few years back. I don't think we only did one. We did one in the end. But yeah, we had like 3 acts on a barge and just went down the canal, and it was great. Yeah, it was kind of challenging. I remember like coming back, and I had to play. And obviously, you go like into the locks at certain points, and like if you've ever been on like on a canal boat when it goes in the locks and it's going up, it like properly like shaking around. So it was like yeah, quite challenging to like mid song. You're trying to like stay on your feet and stay still.
Getting Elvis hips out while you're balancing.
Yeah. Definitely quite a unique gig situation, but it was good.
So yeah, how do you go about acquiring gigs then? I know like if it is a bit DIY, like someone like Hugh Stevens is an amazing contact to have. Like how are you able to be seen by different people? How do you get their attention?
I don't know. You just kind of like build up like contacts gradually, like over the years, and just kind of talk to people. I think like in creative circles especially, you know, just try and like speak to as many people as you can. I mean, it's another one with me because I'm not the most super active kind of like at a certain point. I gigged relentlessly. I did loads, and I don't tend to do lots and lots now. Definitely need to do a bit more. Bit of a musical recluse at the minute, but yeah, I think like just like kind of not being afraid to ask for things, and like I say, if there's any kind of point where there's a little bit of momentum behind you, just trying to like ride that.
Do you think I was speaking with the founder of King of the Hills, which is a bit like SBTV for the North, and it helps look to get urban acts and different sort of styles of music, how to build that momentum. And one of the things that came out of that conversation, and I think it can translate, is when you've got a hot single or a hot EP, what's going to be off the back of that to help, you know, funnel that momentum? So is that something almost where you have to come up with your essential like material there, but then you've got to put that on the shelf to make sure that something else is ready to roll, so that when that comes, and it's almost like a conveyor belt. Is that something that you've had to balance the two?
Yeah, you definitely see a lot of acts like generally kind of like that, where they have like some really, really good material that's good to go, but they can lose momentum quite quickly if there's not something ready to go afterwards. But that's a tricky one, really, because I know like the thing with the creative process is when you finish something new, you just want to put it out. You just want people to hear it, and sometimes you have to sit on it for a long time. So like by the time people actually do hear it, it's like old to you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Because there's a connection to it, isn't there? There's almost like it's an extension of you. So you're so excited about it. There's that energy in it, and by the time if you've sat on it, it's like, oh yeah, trying to recapture that energy with it again.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, for me, it's like kind of less about I've kind of like I've always been kind of like wary of a lot of the like industry, some of the industry side of it, and I think it really ultimately, you know, it depends what you want out of it, and it depends what you're in it for. But like I said, kind of before, like I just really like writing songs, and if I can do something with them and they reach a lot of people, then great. But like if not, it doesn't really matter. So like for me, it's been less about like, oh, how can I capitalize on this and kind of like make sure, you know, that I have tons of momentum with it. It's just, I don't know, I just kind of do it, which I realize isn't helpful. But
is it something though where you do want to like step up the touring side again? Like, you know, you were just saying you feel like a bit of a tour recluse, but is it something where even if you are just writing, there's still that connection of playing live music, which is an extension of the songwriting? But even, I mean, maybe I'll ask you that in that side of it then, do you get as much as the connection when you're singing live as you do from songwriting? Are they all in one world to you, or are they separate commodities?
I think that they overlap, but they're kind of separate. But I do think that they are both like equally rewarding. You know, you can have some amazing experiences playing in front of people, and I have as well. You know, across the years, definitely have. It's a different kind of feeling to like the feeling that you have in a studio, or kind of like listening back where you know you've written something that you like. So yeah, they're kind of like separate entities almost, but yeah, they're definitely like kind of super rewarding, like both of them.
Do you think that one channels the other? You know, I tend to look at different acts, and I think to myself, like, there's certain bands. I use Kings of Leon as an example, and it always seems like I'm throwing shade on them, but I'm not. But like, you know, when they wrote Sex on Fire, you knew that they knew that that was going to be a hit, and it was going to fill every arena, and all the fans were going to be singing it. And it were almost like they turned against it because it was too easy for them at that point. So, is there when you're writing and you know you've had that connection, does that sometimes impact again when you're writing, because you know what's going to connect, you know what's going to work in a room?
No, actually, that's like something that I've consciously always tried to avoid, and I think that comes from, like I say, songwriting being an outlet, and like the songs first and foremost being like the songs that like I want to write more than anything else. And I do think bands can get into quite dangerous territory when they start thinking about, you know, what an audience is going to like. And it, you know, it depends on the bands, because there are some amazing like stadium rock bands who have clearly pandered to their audiences and yet still written like killer songs as well. But it's just not been something that has interested me, I guess.
It's crazy.
It's totally subjective, and it's totally like, you know, it's totally depends where you lie on music making and what's important to you.
I find it is an interesting one. It is subjective, but it is crazy because when you come through, I always think that's sometimes why a third album sometimes drops off, because the first album, you've just waited all your life pretty much. You just stacked it in the album. That's you know, you're fighting to be heard. It's almost like you're drowning and you're trying to like grasp that air, and everyone's heard it, and it's like, yes, that sense of relief, that breath, I did it, that satisfaction. Second album's like, okay, well, I'm riding off that a bit. I can still vibe with that. But then the third, it's like, well, do I want something new to say? Do I remember what I'm saying? My lifestyle's also changed a bit, so what I'm going to be talking about is very different, but I still want to remain true to my core and my roots. And I almost think that when you're a performer, it's almost a bit of a paradox, because you're selfishly creating so that everybody else gets it. Because if you try to then start guessing what people like, you're always losing, because you don't know what people like.
Yeah.
But if you're writing just for yourself, not to connect, then you're not losing out essentially, but you are, in a sense of, you're not going to be able to gravitate to your audience and what they want. So it's a real weird one to find. But I agree. I think that if you know what your calling is and why you're performing, that is what your narrative's going to be when you're creating, and then it means more when people jump to that.
Yeah, I totally. And you know what? It can go completely the other way as well in terms of songwriting, which is a lot of things that people don't always reference. But if you have too much of a set idea of what you should sound like, then that can also be bad, because it's going to limit your like growth and your kind of want to try new things as well. So like I know it's an easy trap to fall into if you like, especially with like bands who found like popularity quite quickly on us and with a certain sound, like a trademark kind of sound. Then as soon as they think that they've pigeonholed themselves in that kind of one bracket, then it can get hard for them to break out. So I think there's a balance there of like, you know, I don't know, I guess it's about authenticity, isn't it? And it's like finding another way to be authentically you know, without being someone else, I guess.
I know what you mean. It's still that even if you do reach out, it's still from yourself. You're not just trying to jump, oh, synth pop's popular now, so I'll suddenly release that sort of album, or like, yeah, it's still been true to your taste. And that leads me on to my next question, really. So you do DJ, you DJ down at Porto.
Yeah.
I like the style that you play. I think we've got a good crossover of music, very LCD, very, you know, big, good tempo, groovy. Which is quite different to what you play, but I'd say like someone like James Murphy, for example, there's a lot of wit in his lyrics. So even if you're playing your different music, is that something that's still inspiring you, even though you're a completely different genre with the music that you tend to play when you DJ?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's so much crossover, like with all of that stuff, and I think. I mean, I wouldn't want to DJ my music to Friday Night Masses. But no, it's definitely. It's weird because I think I listen to music slightly differently when I'm DJing or when I'm like kind of looking at tracks to play. It's you kind of almost viewing it through a slightly different lens to how you would if you were just ordinarily just listening to stuff, because you kind of that's an area where you are kind of second guessing to a point, because you're kind of thinking, you know, what's like
what goes with what,
how's the room going to react to this and what I'm playing, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I love DJing, and it's a different kind of like completely different like energy that kind of get from that. But I really miss it actually through all of this. Now we're speaking about it, get to the same point on like get to the same point in like a Friday night where I'm just like, I should be leaving the house now. It's really odd.
So true. How did you get into DJing?
Just really accidentally. Kind of fell into it. It was kind of like always like really, really obsessively into music of all sorts, and then just kind of I think first time I've really done anything was I had to cover someone somewhere last minute, and they were just like, "Oh yeah, he loves music. He's like got like kind of a decent knowledge of all of this," and then just like did it, went well, did it again, got a bit better at it, and then kind of learnt on the job, really. But you kind of, there were, you know, like many years of just like obsessively listening to a lot of stuff before kind of reaching that point.
Do you find that a lot of what you play is probably going back to that era of indie? I tend to find that is like, I was speaking with Matt from Pigeons about that era and what it must have been like living through it at the forefront of it, because I still feel time bound by that. You know, I play a lot of modern music, and you know, obviously I go back with the disco and stuff, but that circa 2006, like that 04, 05, 06 especially, and like, yeah, maybe 07, like that time was just wow. It was just literally like wow.
I think, you know, all of these things are pretty cyclical, aren't they? And like, it depends kind of like what's in. I mean, guitar music generally around that time was just at the forefront of everything. You know, that there was a huge kind of like mainstream like breakthrough back then. So like guitar bands were the biggest like acts on the planet. I don't necessarily think that's the case right now. It doesn't mean to say that there's not like great like guitar music being made now. I mean, like just at the minute, there's like in the last kind of year, if you look at like post punk and like the kind of resurgence that has, that kind of style has had and is having, you know, these things definitely like kind of come in circles. But I mean, there tends to be, I think there's an element in that.
Oh, sorry, you cut just as you just after the pop punk bit, you just cut just after that. Can you hear me, mate?
After it, post punk, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we've got you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so everything kind of comes around in circles, really, on that point. And yeah, it doesn't mean to say necessarily that, you know, like it won't come around again, but I think like that era for me is definitely kind of like entwined with like a kind of nostalgia, and I think that's why a lot of people kind of love it so much, is because, you know, it reminds them of a particular time in their lives as well.
Very, very good point. Does that come into it when you're writing as well, like looking to create memories and moments with that?
I think sometimes you might be trying to like document a particular feeling or like a time frame sometimes, like almost like taking a snapshot of that point in time. I think like a lot of songs kind of exist in that kind of world, where it's not like, it might not be it might not kind of make a lot of sense, but might kind of just like evoke a kind of nostalgic feeling, you know, that you might be experiencing at any point.
That's class. And then the final one from me, we've got to take it to football, mate. What do you think's going to happen with the season? What's going to happen?
I don't know, to be honest. I really don't know. It's you know, it's such a difficult situation, and I think it's really not helped that so much of the discourse and the debate has been played out in public, because everyone has a vested interest in it, and no one can really separate that from like logic and, you know, what should happen. So it's just like it's really complex, you know, and kind of like it's mad because like I'm football mad, and like at a certain point before all this kind of really stepped up, it felt like the most important thing. And now like as the weeks have gone on, it just doesn't. But like which is really weird. But yeah, there's just no right answer. I think I'd like to see the season completed when it's safe to do so. funnily, I'd try not to think of that too much from a Liverpool point of view, but from the fact that, you know, Liverpool's almost the easy bit, really, if you want to think of it like that. You know, that like that points gap is just like unheard of, and like nothing surprising is going to happen there. But you know, for the teams chasing like European places for the relegation battle,
For teams that are going to be looking to come up as well.
exactly. You know, there's just like there's so many different implications for it. You know, like. And you know, even there's a lot of people just saying bin it off and then start the next one, but like there's no guarantee that the next one will be all right. You know, there's you know, talk about a second wave being quite likely and things like that happening. So you don't know. I don't know. Like I say, it's just it's really too complex to kind of like to kind of whittle down to one point, I think. But yeah, I'd like to see it finished, like if it can be. But you know, if it's safe to do so, obviously.
I think it needs to be, and obviously as an Arsenal fan, like there's no like allegiance here, but I do think like it's just right for it to happen. So yeah, I would like to see that happen for you. The final one from me is from this lady in the group who is Garda Turkey. So maybe one of your fans from Turkey is saying, please Sam, I want you to sing Stars and post a video on IGTV. So would you consider doing an IG live? I know that a lot of musicians spot with Adam French. He's done a few Instagram lives. Is it something that you have on your horizon and you'd consider to do?
Yeah, I think I am going to do. I think like at the start of all this and through a lot of it, there was just so much kind of noise on that front and kind of like pressure for people to do that. And it didn't feel right, I don't think. I don't know. There seems to be so much of it where just like tons of people are doing them. And yeah, you didn't want to really get lost in that kind of like noise. It is something that like I would like to do at some point. So I've been chatting to a couple of friends. We're planning to do something in the next week or two where we can kind of like do a bit of like a songwriter's circle and kind of like go between us on a live thing and play a few songs. So yeah, I definitely will be doing something soon.
Amazing. There you go. We found out a bit about you Turkey fans as well. It's all synced in. it's all synced in, brother. But no, thank you for your time. Do you want to let people know where they can find you, and also any upcoming information about any imminent releases or anything that is pending on the horizon?
Yeah, in terms of imminent things, this has kind of thrown a lot of that out the window, to be honest. But I think that's the same for most people, to be honest. Yeah, but so I'm working on another album at the minute. Yeah, just kind of like using the time to create and yeah, write as many songs as I can. But yeah, in terms of finding my existing stuff, Spotify, Bandcamp, all the usuals up on there. If anyone wants a physical record, I've got some vinyl and CDs. If anyone's still into them, so yeah, just give us a shout.
What a gent! I'll let you get back to your cat.
Awesome, thanks for having me, mate.
Take it easy, brother. Look after. Bye.
See you later.
There we are. So that was me chatting with Sam Airey about the life of a singer-songwriter. I'm going to be chatting again. She's just actually joined the group, actually. Laura Bartlett. Hello. I'm going to be finishing this chat, and then I'm going to be starting my next chat with Laura, who is the founder and CEO of House of Cocoa. So I'm going to be speaking to her about all things to do with that life and also her mentoring as well. So if you want to stick around, make sure that you join the next chat with me, Ben Random, at 5. Other than that, peace and light to you and yours. Thank you for everybody who contributed with the comments and everybody who watched. If you want to see any of the previous chats, go on YouTube and search Pop Cult Chic, and you can find all the Loose Lips chats on there, and as well on Instagram, pop.cult.chic. You can find everything there. Peace.